Welcome back, Gothamites. If you're new here, hi. I'm London, aka History of the Batman. I don't even have a proper intro to this video because a couple of days ago, Sci-Fi Channel or Sci-Fi Wire, they put up on their YouTube channel, which you should check out because they have tons of Batman 80th anniversary content. They sat down with writer Jim Starlin, who penned the now iconic series Batman: A Death in the Family. And that is a series where Jason Todd was murdered. Now from this video came this video. And I won't give all the details away about the Jason Todd one because it's on this list. And for this list, I'm going to tell you 7 WTF facts you probably didn't know about Batman. And that's covering not just the character itself, but supporting characters and even creators that brought the Batman to life. And me being a history buff loves this kind of stuff, loves knowing what could have been or how we got to a certain storyline or how a character is presented. I love that. So I am sharing my love for this craziness with you guys and I hope you enjoy it. But before we go down a very horrible rabbit hole, why don't you subscribe to this channel and become part of this wonderful Gothamite community. It is awesome here, so come join us. Did you know? That's how all of these are gonna start. And did you know that the death of Dick Grayson's parents was originally going to be by the hands of Nazis back in the 1940s? If you did, awesome. If you didn't, what? So let's talk about how we got here. In 1940's Detective Comics 38, Dick Grayson debuted as the first Robin the Boy Wonder when his parents were murdered by gangster Tony Zuko. Now, this origin is relatively the same throughout the decades, throughout his almost 80-year history. But because this was in 1940, at the time of the publication, the political world was just in shambles during World War II. Oh, my book fell. Oh no, I gotta fix that. That scared me just a little. I frighten rather easily. I still have my London Jackson sign that I received at a LA Comic-Con this last year. I have one from like WonderCon and San Diego Comic-Con, but I just love that. Maybe it's narcissistic of me, I don't know, but that's my name, so. I probably like those signs because I never thought I would actually have a sign that has my name that's connected to a con and me participating in a con than just being a fan and going to the con, so I guess I'm just very grateful that I'm able to do fun things like moderate panels and do interviews with some of my favorite creators. And I guess it's just a more like humbling thing to have that on my nerd shelf. Anyway, back to 1940, back to World War II. So even the dynamic duo themselves of Batman and Robin on many comic book covers are supporting the troops. They're asking you to buy war bonds, and they're actually punching people like Hitler and Nazis and the Axis powers because screw those guys. But basically, their connection to the war was already very present. Then the question came that if Batman and Robin were so popular, which they were, especially after Batman received his own self-titled publication in 1940, they're like, why don't we translate that popularity into radio? Which is working perfectly fine for Superman, who had his own radio show. Which, you can listen to excerpts of that on YouTube. Like, if you want a rabbit hole, go down that one because I love listening to Superman radio from the 40s, especially the episodes when Batman and Robin are actually guest stars. It is so much fun. Well, in 1943, the same year, by the way, that Batman received his own black and white serial with Columbia Pictures, titled Batman and starring Lewis Wilson, they decided maybe we should try a Batman radio show, and they recorded the pilot, but then everything else just got scratched and the radio show just never happened. Well, in one of those episodes, it was Dick Grayson's origin story, and apparently his parents were FBI agents and his parents were killed by Nazi spies, which of course is vastly different from the original tale of gangster Tony Zuko and Nazi spies. Either way, his parents were going to be killed, which is sad, but that's just part of the tragic origin story that many superheroes have. Although we are all used to Tony Zuko being the murderer of Dick Grayson's parents, for the time being in 1940, 1943, Dick Grayson's parents being killed by Nazis is very, very timely and very much shows where we were in the world during this period. So I suppose I can appreciate that in a sense. But I'm fine with Tony Zuko. No Nazis, it's fine. Our next one. Did you know that co-creator of Batman, Bob Kane, said some really homophobic stuff while defending Batman in the 1960s? If you did, awesome. If you didn't, freak out with me. To be honest, if you are surprised, you shouldn't be. What is no surprise is that during the late 1940s throughout the 1950s, Batman and Robin's dynamic, Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, they were seen by many as having a more homosexual relationship than the dynamic of father and son, which was intended by the writers and artists and creators throughout all of the decades. And this was only heightened by German psychologist Frederick Wertham's 1954 book, Seduction of the Innocent, where he pretty much said that all comic books are just corrupting the youth of today. Or then, which was today. The parents just ate that up. Comics Code Authority kicked in the mid-1950s, which pretty much policed the content that was in any comic. Unfortunately, this concept and the Comics Code Authority lasted throughout the 50s and even throughout the 60s, especially during the time of the live-action TV series Batman, starring Adam West and Burt Ward as Batman and Robin. During the original run of the series, in 1967, writer Paul Sand wrote the book Fads, Follies, and Delusions of the American People. In this well-received book, there is a block of quotation from co-creator Bob Kane and his honest thoughts about people who still say that Batman and Robin are gay lovers. And it's like, ooh, baby, what is you doing? It is just... I'm going to read you an excerpt from him, not me. So don't think that I'm like saying this. I don't want there to be confusion. I don't know why there would be, but it's the internet, so I just have to clarify that this is what Bob Kane said that is from this book. Go read the book. It's in there. I'm not just making it up. Anyway, he said Batman is the epitome of virility and manliness, just the opposite image of the fag. I'm not reading the entire bulk of this because I just literally do not have the will in my soul to do so. But his conclusion basically was, I suppose the homosexuals like the TV show because of those tight outfits Adam West and Burt Ward wear. I imagine they sit around watching them on the screen and slap each other on the knees with the sheer joy of it all. But what can you do about that? I can't change the characters because they weren't homos in the first place, and because you have to be crazy to fight success. I'm sorry, it angers me. What? So, while giving him the benefit of the doubt, don't know why, but I'm a nice person. While Kane was trying to defend the characters that he helped co-create in 1939 and 1940, he could have done such a much better job with doing it. Like, this just wasn't it. I don't know. But I suppose even though he was trying to defend them, this also just sheds a horrible light on his character, which if you've watched anything, in particular Mark T. Nobleman's Batman and Bill, which is a documentary on Hulu, you can tell that Bob Kane is kind of a trash person. And that is not a secret. That is not, oh, you didn't know that. You knew that. You just did. Are we glad that he was part of the process of bringing Batman to life? Of course, and we always will be. But we are not going to negate the fact that Bob Kane just probably wasn't the best person. That's all I have to say about that. All right, on to the next one because I'm so done with Bob Kane right now. Did you know that in Frank Miller's 1986 4-issue series, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, that in issue 4, there was a completely alternate ending that was actually a little bit darker than the one that we got, which, how? Whether or not you've read the 4-issue arc or you have watched Ben Affleck's Batman scream on the screen, "Why did you say that name?" Either way, you know Frank Miller's Batman, you are somewhat familiar with The Dark Knight Returns, you are somewhat knowledgeable about this groundbreaking 4-issue arc that issued in the adult graphic novel within the late 1980s. But for those who haven't read it, and I recommend it, by the way, Superman and Batman have the ultimate battle in Crime Alley, and Bruce Wayne suffers a heart attack and dies. The funeral happens and Superman hears a faint heartbeat within the grave, knowing that Bruce Wayne is actually alive and that he faked his own death. Carrie Kelly, aka Robin, digs up Bruce Wayne and they go underground to train the new Sons of Batman, or the new Batmen of Gotham City. Well, Frank Miller actually had a few alternate endings that he had for Dark Knight Returns, and one of them was discussed in the 10th anniversary issue of The Dark Knight Returns. Cliff Notes version, bear with me. After the fight in Crime Alley, Bruce is actually rushed to the hospital in need of desperate surgery because he's about to die. But when Bruce is alone in the surgery room for a very brief second, he gets a capsule that is under the foreskin of his arm. He digs up in there and he grabs a capsule, puts it in his mouth and bites it down. And after all of this happens, his vital signs go flat and it seems that he is dead and that he has died. The doctors and the attendees come in, see Bruce's dead body on the table, and they're pretty much like, that's a wrap. No autopsy for this kid, which I think is so crazy, but it's fine. Of course, we're back at another funeral. Bruce is buried. Everyone is mourning. Even Superman is mourning. But then, of course, like a little bird in the wind, he hears a very faint heartbeat and gives that good old-fashioned wink to Carrie Kelly, who, after everyone leaves, Carrie Kelly, aka Robin, digs up the body, and would you look at that? Bruce faked his own death in the hospital. So literally to them, to the doctors, to the attendees, it seemed like he bit into the capsule, which is probably like a cyanide capsule, and committed suicide before he got the surgery. How dark. That is one of the alternate endings, which I'm so curious to know the other alternate endings and if they're just darker than suicide. I just am curious to know. Okay, our next fact is about my queen, Barbara Gordon. Did you know that Barbara Gordon had a chance to be Batgirl once again right after the horrible events of Batman: The Killing Joke? I didn't. And if you did, what? As many of you probably know, Alan Moore and Brian Boland's 1988 graphic novel, Batman: The Killing Joke, kind of set the fate for Barbara Gordon when the Joker shot her and paralyzed her from the waist down. Now, Barbara Randall Kessel, she was the writer who actually penned her retirement from Batgirl in Batgirl Special Number 1. But in an interview, Kessel goes on to say that while she was writing Barbara's retirement story, she also had an idea that she actually pitched to DC Comics that would make Barbara Gordon still be Batgirl, but under some very technological conditions. Kessel's pitch as a whole was right after the incident in The Killing Joke, Barbara Gordon would be healed of the gunshot. Kessel proposed that with the technology that already exists within the DC universe, whether from Star Labs to the Promethean joint armor, combined with her already awesome photographic memory, she could remember her former movements for her legs. So she would use this technology and the armor to be able to move and be active, but without the armor, her legs would still be paralyzed. Well, DC actually liked this idea. John Ostrander and Kim Yale had an even cooler idea of making Barbara Gordon the new persona of the genius hacker Oracle, which first debuted in Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad the following year in 1989. And for the next 25 years, Barbara Gordon would be the badass that is Oracle. Up until 2011's The New 52 initiative, where it was a soft reboot and Barbara Gordon once again was Batgirl. This idea, I think, has been discussed and highlighted within the DC Comics world, but we got Oracle and I love Oracle, so it's okay. Next story. This is why this video exists, because of this story. So thanks, sci-fi. Did you know that Jason Todd was supposed to die from AIDS instead of the Joker in the late 1980s? Did you know that? Because before watching the sci-fi video, I honestly didn't. And I live for history like that. I live for background on epic stories. Like these little tidbits, I am loving this. That's probably why I'm so hyped. Because I just think it's so cool. Okay, anyway, so how do we get to Jason Todd almost dying of AIDS? Well, writer Jim Starlin did not hide the fact that not only did he not like the Robin character, but he really didn't like Jason Todd because he was a very annoying little kid that disobeyed Batman even though he was his sidekick. But a lot of readers felt that way. It wasn't just Starlin, it was readers. And DC Comics figured that out. Now, before A Death in the Family began, which was in 1988 going into 1989, DC Comics actually wanted to create an AIDS book because they wanted to highlight to their audience, to their demographic, the epidemic that was going on in the world. So in the DC Comics offices, they pretty much had a box and you put in the name of the character that you think should die from AIDS. That already sounds like an awful idea, but here we are. Jim Starlin in this sci-fi video literally confessed that he stuffed the ballot box with Jason Todd's name, hoping he would be the chosen one to die from AIDS. Well, Jimmy Olsen for some reason was the one chosen, which, why would you do that, guys? Why would you do that? Jimmy Olsen is dope. Like, I love him. That makes me sad. But B, the entire project didn't even get made. Like, it was scrapped. Like, it didn't even happen. So the whole AIDS booklet isn't even a thing with DC Comics. So it was all kind of pointless. But anyway, right after they did the AIDS booklet challenge, A Death in the Family happened, and DC Comics decided to give the readers the chance to vote whether or not Jason Todd lives or dies, because he was just that much of an unlikable character, apparently. And by the closest margin, it was like a 72 vote difference, Jason Todd died at the hands of the Joker after being beaten with a crowbar and stuck in a warehouse that had explosives around it, and the explosives detonated and he died. I'm not sure would have been a better death. Jason Todd dying of AIDS, which is tragic, or Jason Todd dying of being beaten by the Joker with a crowbar and then exploding in a warehouse where you're held hostage with your mom. They're both horrible. I think now Joker beating Jason Todd with a crowbar is an iconic image that is just seared into the minds of any and everyone that has read A Death in the Family. It just is now. And as I talked about in our last video, actually, this set the relationship between Batman and Joker to the most personal level, and it just showed that their fight is just going to be infinite. It is just, there's no stopping Batman trying to get Joker for what he's done to his family, to Jason Todd, to Babs, to everybody. It's so, I don't even know how to end that. AIDS. What the hell? Okay, our next one is that, did you know that Stephanie Brown was only given the mantle of Robin because the writers knew she was going to die just a few issues later? If this isn't Make-A-Wish DC Comics edition I don't know what is. So if you aren't familiar with Stephanie Brown or her being Robin or her dying or any of that, let me give you a little bit of backstory, Cliff Notes edition. So Stephanie Brown was created in the early 1990s, I believe 92, don't quote me, by Tom Lyle and Chuck Dixon, and she was originally the persona of Spoiler. In 2004, after Tim Drake briefly left the mantle as Robin due to some really bad family issues, Stephanie Brown was like, hey Batman, let me be Robin. I would be dope at it. And reluctantly, Batman was like, okay. And he trained Stephanie and they went out on missions. Now, Batman's main thing to Stephanie, he literally said, if you mess up on a mission and literally almost get us killed, you are not going to be Robin anymore. You get one chance, which I don't think is fair at all, but whatever. And Stephanie was like, sure, I got it. Literally an issue later, Stephanie messes up on the field and Batman fires her when they get back to the Batcave. He's like, I'm gonna change the security codes, leave your costume right here, get out. Which devastated Stephanie because all she wanted to do was truly be a part of the Batman family and be Robin. Stephanie, back into the guise of Spoiler, wanted to prove that she could truly be the good girl Wonder and devised this seemingly steel-proof plot, but this caused an entire Gotham City turf war, which is all spelled out in the arc Batman War Games. And within this arc, the insane criminal Black Mask actually kidnaps Stephanie Brown and tortures her for information about Batman. Of course, Stephanie, being the good girl she is, was like, nah fam, I ain't giving you nothing. But Black Mask literally tortures her to the point where she is dying. And she is taken to the hospital and Batman speaks with her. And really sad, it's actually a very sad panel, Stephanie just asked, like, was I actually a Robin? Was I really part of the Batman family? Literally, that's all she wants to know. And right before her thing goes beep, Batman's like, yes, you are Robin. You are part of the Batman family always. So sad. There's more to this story, like Leslie Tompkins faking Stephanie Brown's death in order to teach Batman some petty lesson, but that's not why we're here. According to the writer of this Stephanie Brown Robin arc within the Robin publication, Bill Willingham, when he was on the book, he didn't learn until way later that they were going to kill off Stephanie. So he's writing Stephanie, being all cool, and then he learns that she's just gonna die in like 5 or 6 issues later. So like I said, the DC Comics version of Make-A-Wish Foundation, Willingham was like, you know what we should do for her considering she's gonna die anyway? Maybe we should make her a Robin and give her something that she has been wanting for a very long time and make her last days within this DC Comics universe memorable and make her happy, which I think is one of the sweetest things I've heard in a really long time. And he was the one that was like, so when she's dying, she could be told by Batman that she truly was a Robin and that she truly was part of the Batman family, kind of leading her in death in happiness. That's sad as hell. I suppose it all turns out okay because later Stephanie comes back as Spoiler and she's even within the current comics, whether it's New 52, DC Rebirth, all of that, and she is part of the Batman family. So in the end, going through this really weird journey, she does get what she wants and she is part of the Bat Clan. Our last WTF fact is that, did you know? It's the last time I'm saying it, I promise. That the Joker was going to be lobotomized at the beginning of the New 52 initiative. I didn't. So if you did, that's awesome, but I'm literally telling you guys things that I didn't know until research. So if you aren't familiar with the Joker within the New 52 initiative, which is the soft reboot that DC Comics gave at the end of 2011, that not only started all over again, like 52 new publications from Detective Comics to Batman to Action Comics to Batgirl to all of it. It all started with #1. The Joker, in literally the first issue, is so extra. He cut his face off and stick it on a wall. And then about a year later, he gets the face back and like staples and like pins it back to his face and then just wreaks havoc on Batman and the Batman family, trying to kill them in the arc Batman: A Death of the Family. It's kind of gross, but it's all a crazy good story. Well, writer and artist Tony S. Daniel, who was on the beginning of the Detective Comics book after the New 52 began, before the cutting of Joker's face was finalized with DC, Tony S. Daniel had the idea to have Dollmaker shoot Joker in the head at Arkham, lobotomize him, and have Dollmaker able to study the Joker's brain and see why he was just so crazy. Daniel presented this idea to DC, and they were more or less kind of like, I don't know. But then Daniel talked to writer Scott Snyder, and Snyder had the idea of having Joker being absolutely unrecognizable to Batman, and wanting Batman to see the Clown Prince of Crime's true self. And then a light bulb went off in Daniel's head, and he's like, why don't we just literally take Joker's face off, and that's a whole new Joker for Batman to see, and boom, that's how we got the really creepy, no face Joker. If you think about it, it literally and figuratively has many, many layers to it, which I can appreciate. So while we do have the faceless Joker forever etched in our minds as scary as heck, the whole lobotomy aspect would actually have been kind of interesting. And just how he would communicate with Batman and how he would do his schemes and all of that if that were to happen. I would have read that story. I mean, I get it. The face thing, that's iconic now. But him having a little bit of his brain, like, I totally get it. I get it. Like would Joker still be insane if he was lobotomized? Would it not matter? Would he be just a normal person? Man, now I want that story. With this and all of the other stories and anecdotes that we have discussed, I mean, I'm happy with what we actually have. I think it would have been kind of cool to see how these iconic characters and stories would have played out in a completely different way, and how that would have molded the future of the DC Comics universe. Thank you so much for watching these 7 WTF facts you didn't know about Batman. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a bat thumbs up. Oh, and also, let me know in the comments below if you are shocked or anything about these facts, and if you want to know more WTF facts, because trust me, there are plenty more. I just whittled it down to 7. As always, all of my social media is linked in the description below, including Instagram at History of the Batman. So why don't you give it a follow and become a Gothamite? Check out my DC Comics videos for DC Comics DC Fans channel. Oh, speaking of DC, I'm wearing a DC shirt that they sent me in an unboxing one time. It has Superman and Batman and the Flash and Green Lantern, and it's just kind of a very poppy shirt. I just like it. I love the color, so just wanted to show that off. And also, please subscribe to this channel so you can become a part of this wonderful Gothamite community. It would mean so much to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will have more History of Batman soon right here on YouTube. Remember, Gothamites, it's all about peace, love, and Batman. Bye.